Trapped and Forgotten, the dark reality of women's prisons in America. Subscribe for more real crime stories. Like, share, and join the discussion below. Locked down. The clanging of metal doors echoed through the dimly lit corridors of the Central California Women's Facility, CCWF, on a sweltering afternoon in July. Inmates shuffled through the narrow hallways, their expressions unreadable but heavy with despair. Suddenly, the chaos erupted. An inmate collapsed on the yard, clutching her stomach, gasping for breath. A guard rushed to her side, but the situation spiraled out of control. "Call the medic," someone shouted, but the urgency of the moment was met with the disinterest typical of daily life in this maximum security prison. As the women surrounded their fallen comrade, fear spread like wildfire. In this moment, the fractures in an already broken system were painfully clear. The medic arrived, but the delay was unforgivable. A chorus of voices rose, demanding answers, demanding care. Yet, the reality was grim. This was not an isolated incident, but a symptom of a larger, systemic issue that plagued the facility. As the camera zoomed in on the troubled faces of the inmates, the scene painted a heartbreaking picture of neglect and suffering. Who would hear their cries? Did anyone even care? This moment not only encapsulated the physical pain, but also highlighted the emotional turmoil that marked their existence, a dark reality hidden from the public eye. Cliffhanger. Just outside, whispers of unrest began to circulate. The women were fed up and ready to take a stand. Would they unite against the oppressive conditions, igniting a movement that would shake the foundations of the prison? The backstory: a system in disarray. The Central California Women's Facility, home to over 2,000 women, was supposed to offer a path to rehabilitation. However, the reality was far from the promise. Designed for security rather than care, the facility exemplified the failures of the U.S. correctional system when it came to women. Most inmates, coming from broken homes and histories of trauma, arrived with more than just criminal charges. They carried the weight of their pasts, often compounded by untreated mental health issues and substance abuse. Many had faced abuse and neglect long before they landed in prison, leaving them vulnerable and deeply affected by their circumstances. Staff shortages were rampant, and the guards, often overwhelmed, resorted to harsh disciplinary measures instead of fostering a supportive environment. In an effort to maintain control, tactile procedures took precedence over empathy. Reports of solitary confinement for minor infractions were common, sending women spiraling into deeper mental anguish. As the women navigated their daily routines, locked in their cells for hours, dealing with subpar meals and poor hygiene facilities, the cracks began to show in the establishment's facade. They were organizing, talking quietly during recreation time, forming bonds that would eventually ignite a spark of hope or revolt. Growing suspicion. The first murmurs of discontent began to surface during weekly meals, where food scarcity and quality issues were often discussed among tablemates. Women shared painful stories of families struggling to send money for care packages, leaving them dependent on the prison's meager offerings. One inmate, Lisa, became known for her courage in bringing issues to light. When she exposed unsanitary food preparation practices, dusty kitchens, moldy bread, her voice became a rallying cry. As she spoke out, the sense of isolation began to break, unearthing shared frustrations and a desire for change. Awaiting the consequences became a nervous game. Would Lisa be punished for her bravery? Or would the women stand behind her? Tension built with each passing day, looming like a storm cloud waiting to unleash its fury on a system long overdue for reckoning. As the chapter unfolds, the potential for explosive conflict between the inmates and the guards grows palpable. The once quiet whispers begin transforming into cries for justice, the breaking point. As the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere at the Central California Women's Facility became increasingly charged. Women who once kept their grievances to themselves began voicing their frustrations more openly, fueled by shared experiences of neglect, abuse, and an overwhelming sense of invisibility. The tipping point loomed closer with every passing day. Rising tensions. On the morning of July 23rd, whispers echoed through the dormitories about an upcoming lockdown. A guard had been caught smuggling contraband, which created an electric tension among the inmates. Many speculated that this would not only punish the guilty, but subject everyone to harsher conditions in retribution. Inmates crowded around the television during the few hours it was on, catching news of other women's prisons across the nation facing similar issues: food shortages, medical neglect, and outright violence. Stories of uprising and rebellion sparked hope in the hearts of the women at CCWF. Could they do the same? Lisa, emboldened by her earlier statements, gathered a small group of trusted allies. They discussed forming a committee to bring their voices together. "If we stand united, they can't ignore us," Lisa urged, her determination igniting a shared sense of purpose among her peers. But the guards' behavior became increasingly suspicious. Lockdowns were frequent, searches meticulous. Fear settled in, the kind of fear that transforms into rage when individuals recognize that change might come at a cost. The day of reckoning. On July 25th, the facility was once again plunged into lockdown. The announcement came with a sense of foreboding, amplifying the anxiety that had been building. All inmates returned to their cells. The guards' words rang through the loudspeakers as heavy metal doors slammed shut one after another, trapping the women in oppressive silence. Tensions flared as rumors circulated that news of their plight might be reaching the outside world. Guards entered the dormitories, issuing verbal threats and imposing harsher rules. During this moment, one of Lisa's allies, Maria, broke under the pressure. "We can't keep living like this," she shouted, her voice piercing through the silence. That outburst unleashed pent-up frustrations among the women. Other inmates began to chant in support. "Our voices matter. We deserve better." The solidarity among them surged, and they felt a palpable shift in their collective energy. It was a moment of awakening. A spark of rebellion. The guards, taken aback by the chorus of defiance, quickly stepped in to quell the uprising. They threatened further punishments, restricting access to phone calls, limiting visitation rights, and confining ringleaders to solitary. But this only fueled the fire within the inmates. A plan began to form among the women. They would stage a hunger strike. If they refused to eat, the prison would have to listen. Lisa and her group made their intentions clear during a brief moment of assembly in the yard. "This is our last chance. We're not asking for much. Just basic human dignity," she proclaimed. That evening, as the women gathered in their cells, whispers of their commitment to the hunger strike circulated like wildfire. The stakes had never been higher, and the anticipation of what was to come filled the air with both dread and empowerment. Building suspense. As the chapter closes, the guards ramp up their attempts to stamp out the brewing rebellion. In a tense moment, the warden announces they will review demands in a strictly monitored meeting, a thinly veiled threat that tension among inmates had to be quashed at all costs. Would the women hold strong in their resolution, or would fear lead them back into submission? The promise of solidarity glimmered in the darkness, but so did the oppressive weight of their confinement. The hunger strike begins. As dawn broke on July 26th, the atmosphere within the Central California Women's Facility was thick with anticipation. Inmates braced for the moment when their hunger strike would formally commence. Tensions ran high, but there was also a palpable sense of unity and resolve, a feeling that they were finally standing up for their rights. The morning of reckoning. During breakfast, as trays filled with unappetizing slop were distributed, Lisa and her comrades made their stand. While most inmates began to eat, they held firm, pushing their trays away, an act that resonated deeply in the oppressive atmosphere. "We're not eating until we're heard," Lisa declared, her voice steady despite the fear that tinged the edges of her resolve. The reaction from both inmates and guards was swift. Some women watched in awe, feeling inspired yet anxious. Others, fearful of retaliation, remained silent, anxious about the ramifications of such bold defiance. The guards took notice quickly. "You think this will work?" one yelled, a smirk on his face, attempting to intimidate the women into submission. Yet, Lisa and her group stood strong, communicating silently with nods and encouraging glances. The reaction of the administration. As the day wore on, Administrators became aware of the hunger strike, and meetings were hastily convened among prison officials. In whispered tones, they discussed the potential fallout of the women's actions. The warden was determined to maintain control at all costs, fearing that any signs of weakness might inspire a more significant uprising. "We can't allow them to believe they're in charge," the warden insisted. "If this escalates, we'll have chaos on our hands." Guards were instructed to monitor the situation closely, ready to crush any signs of solidarity with an iron fist. Yet even among the guards, there was division. Some sympathized with the inmates, recognizing their plight as a reflection of deeper systemic issues, while others remained fiercely loyal to a code of order above all else. A rising tide of support. The longer the hunger strike continued, the more solidarity grew within the prison. Inmates from different dormitories began to join in, with more women refusing meals, signaling a critical mass forming against oppression. The act of defiance sparked discussions about medical care, access to sanitary products, and the psychological toll of constant indignity. For the first time, women felt they weren't alone in their struggles. As the days turned into a week, rumors spread that family members outside the prison had begun to catch wind of the hunger strike, amplifying the call for accountability. Inmates shared thin whispers about potential media coverage and how interviews with family could change the narrative. Lisa became a de facto leader, facilitating discussions among the women and ensuring that their grievances remained unified. "We need to present a clear list of demands," she encouraged, reflecting on the need for their voices to be heard in a way that would resonate beyond the prison walls. The pushback. However, not all women were willing to join the hunger strike. Fear loomed large. The threat of punishment for participating women was tangible. Guards began implementing stricter measures to divide inmates, further emphasizing their authority. "Anyone caught participating will face consequences," one guard warned, creating an atmosphere of paranoia that marginalized the earliest voices of dissent. In a pivotal moment, Maria, one of Lisa's closest allies, faltered. With tears in her eyes, she confided to Lisa, "What if we end up worse off? What if they retaliate?" Lisa responded gently but firmly, "If we don't speak up now, nothing will change. This is our chance to be heard. Together, we can push for something better." Building suspense. As the chapter closes, the tension remains high. The hunger strike continues, but with increasing uncertainty as administrators consider more extreme measures to suppress the growing movement. With each passing meal, Lisa and her fellow inmates bore the brunt of the toll their decision takes on their bodies. Would their strength hold? Or would the pressure from the guards break their will? In the thickening darkness of the prison, hope shimmered dimly, but so did the shadows of fear.